Hi, I just want to inspire you to some independent thinking here that hopefully can assist you in widening your perspectives and perhaps even start ask some questions about, in this case, our ancient history. So without further ado, let's go to the Great Pyramid of Giza, also called the Khufu Pyramid. Now let's start off with a few, wow, I didn't know that about this pyramid. There are no inscriptions in this pyramid, no hieroglyphs, no depictions of deities, and no mummy has ever been found in this pyramid. In fact, it's a common misconception that mummies are found in pyramids at all. Now I'm not going to stray off to woo-woo land here and claim that it was built by giants or gods or Elon Musk built it with a magic wand. This is simply, I just want you to think for yourself, do your own research and question authorities, because once you start to poke around and lift a few rocks and look what's underneath, you will see that there are many things that simply just doesn't make any sense. So why is this important, I hear ponder? Well, fundamentally, it's all about the control and suppression of the human consciousness and our connection to the divinity within ourselves. But that's for another video. Let's go. The most common and equally amusing theory is that good old-fashioned slave labor, that's how the pyramids were built. Slaves that either pushed or pulled these giant blocks up wooden ramps on sand that was lubricated by water. Well, it's kind of interesting that the only time you would hear slaves mentioned in the context of ancient Egypt is in this very hypothesis, as if we just need to fill a gap that we can't explain otherwise. So yeah, let's bring in slaves. Slaves built it. The biggest blocks in the pyramid weighs about 70 tons. 70 tons, that's about the same weight as 30 SUVs, and they're stacked on top of each other, not on ground level, but about 100 meters up, like 300 feet from ground level. What kind of wooden ramp would be needed to drag up 70-ton blocks without breaking? Just think about it. Use your own brain now. Does it make sense? Does it? Maybe it does. Really? I don't know. Let alone the fact that you also need to compensate for the very steep 52-degree outside slope, so the ramps will be... forget about it. Now these huge blocks made out of rose granite, they were quarried 900 kilometers away from the Giza necropolis, 560 miles. It doesn't make the transport easier, does it? Slaves be like, huh. Rose granite is an extremely hard rock. It's not easy to cut, and yet these blocks are cut with such a precision that you can't even fit a sheet of paper in between them. And we simply don't know how they did that. And apparently it seems like we can't just surrender to the fact, like, kudos to you, we have no fucking idea how he did it, but we're impressed. But we have to come up with these stupid ideas and theories, like, you know, from our own monkey brains, like, yeah, they probably just threw in a bunch of more slaves that rubbed down those blocks gently, you know, they were persistent and they had patience. Yeah, come on, does it make sense? Does it make sense? Does it? Other core blocks were made out of limestone, and they were quarried a measly 400 meters or 1,300 feet away on the eastern shore of the Nile. Altogether, there are about 2.5 million blocks in the pyramid, and the total weight is about 6 million tons, and it leaves a 13-acre footprint. I'd say it's damn impressive. It's almost perfectly aligned to the true north, not to the magnetic north pole, but to the astronomical north, with a misalignment of 3 arc minutes or 3/60th of 1 single degree. To bring that into context, in the 1600s, when they built the observatory in Paris, they built that with intention for it to be the most accurately aligned building on Earth to true north, but that's only half as accurate as the Pyramid of Giza. The base measures 230.6 meters, about 755 feet, and the height is 146.7 meters, about 480 feet. Half the base perimeter divided by the height gives you pi, and the ratio between the half base width and the slope length is phi, the golden ratio, 1.618. But in ancient Egypt they used a unit of measure called royal cubits. This measure is based on 7 units called palms, and each palm is divided into 4 fingers. Please note the absence of metric values here, where everything is based on units of 10. So in this unit of measure we got 440 cubits base and 280 cubits height. This is the so-called King's Chamber. It is 10 cubits wide. exactly 1/28 of the entire height. Now why is this special? Well, since the royal cubit is based on units of 7 divided into 4, 7 times 4 equals 28, it's just a nice fit. It doesn't make sense? So, the king's chamber, 10 cubits wide and 20 cubits long. That yields a perimeter of 60 cubits. That just happens to be pi times 10. If they just randomly would apply hints of metric values into the dimensions of this room, wouldn't it make sense in that case that also the height would be 10 cubits? But it's not. It's 11.18 cubits. Why? Well, maybe because now the diagonal of the room is exactly 12 meters. So one might assume that the builders incorporated the value of the meter deliberately into the structure of the pyramid. The meter, by the way, wasn't established until 1791, as we know it. Is there anything worth pointing out of its location? Well, the pyramid's latitude is 299,792,458 north, and 299,792,458 meters per second just happens to be the speed of light. Whoops, what a coincidence. And the outer circle circumference divided by the inner circle circumference is also weirdly close to the value of speed of light, 299,765,516. That's a 99.99% accuracy, y'all. But I'm sure it's just a coincidence. Numbers are the highest degree of knowledge. It is knowledge itself. Plato. It isn't far-fetched to assume that the builders knew about the precession of the equinoxes. So what is this precession? You may have heard that we're at the dawning of the age of Aquarius and that we're leaving the age of Pisces. Because of a wobbling motion of the Earth's axis, which unfolds very, very slowly and is barely observable, we're gradually tracking the sun backwards as a marker against the zodiacs. Only 1 degree every 72 years, so it will take 25,920 years to complete a full cycle, or 360 degrees if you will. So this circle fits all our 12 zodiacs, each representing an era of 2,160 years, give or take. And now we're at the dawning of Aquarius. Alright, I'm not gonna sidetrack on that, but this wobbling effect causes friction at the equator. So the Earth is actually 40 kilometers wider at the equator than from the South Pole to the North Pole, which produces a completely unique ratio from the equatorial baseline and the polar radius. Now, could we find this ratio within the pyramid, mind you? So remember this wobbling, 1 degree every 72 years. Number 72 is hence what we call a precessional number, and there are other precessional numbers as well. The one that stands out most is 43,200, that stands in direct relation to the size of the Earth, and this number can be seen in and read about in any ancient tradition, like in Norse mythology. There were 43,200 warriors that fought and died in Ragnarök, the Norse version of the Book of Revelation, and in the Mahayugas, 43,200 years constitutes a full cycle of birth and death, and in the Rig Veda there are exactly 43,200 syllables, and many ancient traditions tune their instruments to 432 hertz, considered to be the harmonial frequency of the universe. And also, fun fact, 43,200 minutes constitutes a full lunar month. Exactly. This is numerology, baby. If we scale up the pyramid 43,200 times, it fits perfectly inside the Earth's perimeter. If you multiply the height of the pyramid by 43,200, you get the polar radius of the Earth. And if you multiply the base perimeter by 43,200, you get the equatorial circumference of the Earth. It's a perfect model of Earth's measurements. The circumference of Earth is 40,000 kilometers. Now this even number is not just random. This is how the definition of the meter came to be. 1 meter is 1/10,000,000th of the shortest distance from the North Pole to the equator. So it's impossible to know the value of the meter without knowing this very distance, because this very distance is what defines the meter as a unit of measure in the first place. Further on, it just so happens that no less than 12 of the most significant constants in mathematics has been recognized in its structure. Pi, phi, square root of 2, square root of 3, square root of 5, square root of 6, inverted Golomb ratio, phi minus 1, the Fibonacci constant, Euler-Mascheroni constant, Brune's constant, E and E-1, discovered by Jacob Bernoulli in 1683. Euler's constant wasn't discovered until 1734, and Brune's as late as 1919. Also embedded in the geometry of the pyramid are three of the most significant units of measure: the royal cubit, the meter, established in 1791, and the imperial foot, established in 1824. This represents the meter, this represents the foot, and this the royal cubit, all perfectly fitted within the geometry of the pyramid. So, as we straighten out these lines, we get the exact ratio between the three most recognized units of measure ever known to man: the meter, the foot, and the royal cubit. And we can see how beautifully they blend together. 1 meter plus 1 cubit equals 5 feet. Well, that's a nice random fit, given that these units of measure shouldn't have anything to do with each other, no relation whatsoever. If we use 1 meter as the radius of a circle, its circumference is 12 cubits. 1 meter, 1 cubit. What a beautiful relationship, just like a clock. 12 units, 12 hours night, 12 hours day, 12 months a year, 12 zodiacs. You know, the precession and all that. And these are just a few examples. There's so much more encoded in this structure, like the distance to the sun, the size of the sun, the same for the moon, the aphelium, the perihelium, meaning the distance shortest and farthest between the sun and the earth. There are shafts in the pyramids that point straight to certain stellar constellations. It's all there, it's so much. Even the pyramid's age is disputable, based only on the assumption that it was built during the 4th dynastic period. An assumption based on interpretations of artifacts that was not originated from within the pyramid itself. Isn't it possible that the pyramid was already there when Khufu came about, and he simply took over and made claim to an already existing building? Considering a pyramid as a shape, per definition, I'm more inclined to believe that this was rather some kind of power plant than a tomb. The shape of a pyramid is a natural attractor and enhancer of energy flow. Working as a sound healer, I often visualize pyramidal shapes or similar vortices or spirals. A funnel is a good example. And look at how dust collects in the corner of a room. It's actually like a three-faced pyramid seen diagonally from underneath. And we have the ancient refrigerator. This is fun, you can try this yourself. It does work, it's no woo-woo, believe me. Get yourself some copper wire and make a somewhat symmetrical copper pyramid. And then you make 2 piles of food, fruits, for instance, like bananas and grapes. 2 piles of food, and then you put the copper pyramid on top of one of the piles. The pile that is underneath the pyramid will last longer than the other one. Don't take my word for it. Get yourself some copper wire and try it out. And we have the Merkaba, the spiritual vehicle. Funnel up, funnel down. Masculine, feminine, electric, magnetic. Anyway, I think it's fair to say that whoever built this had high knowledge in geometry, geodesy, math, numerology, astronomy, and astrology. And remember, we still teach in our schools today that when this magnificent structure was built, we hadn't yet invented the wheel. Now I want you to think about that for a while. Isn't that like to say, I can build a spaceship, I can build a supercomputer, and I can build a submarine, but I can't change a broken light bulb in my bathroom because that just seems too complicated to me. That's for future generations to sort out. So, is this nothing more than a tomb for a supposed mummy that was never found there in the first place? So what have scholars, academics, archaeologists, Egyptologists to say about all this? The ones that run and control the narrative of our history. What do they say about the math, pi, phi, and the numbers and the numerology and the line?
It is a coincidence. It is nothing but a coincidence.